Before we continue today's session, it is so important that we do an acknowledgement of traditional lands. Royal Roads University acknowledges that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Chaseten Remillard and Dr Songhees ancestors and families. It is with gratitude that we now learn and work here, where the past, the present, and the future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. Welcome. Just to make sure everybody's in the right room, today's webinar is on the Bachelor of Arts in Professional Communication. And with me, I have Dr. Chaseten Remillard, who's the Associate Professor and Head of the MA and on-campus BA in Professional Communications. And we have Dr. Geo Takach, who is the Associate Professor and Head of Blended BA in Professional Communication. And my name is Imara Angus, and I'm an education specialist. We also have our enrollment team supporting behind the scenes. So if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat and they'll be able to support you that way. And we also have Selena joining us, who is our tech support. So if you have any technology related questions, send her a direct message in the chat and she can help you. Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us today. So agenda. Get to know one another. That is what we are doing right now. I'm going to see if I have a poll here prepared for everybody. I do. So I'm going to launch a poll. If everybody can look up on their screen right now, I'm launching a poll and I'll give you a few moments to answer. We just want to get to know everybody better. So what the first question is what has you interested in considering communication studies? And the options are, I want to work in the field, I already work in communications, I want to influence positive change, mere curiosity, communications is where it's at people, or not sure yet. And so you can select any of those options and you can select more than one. So I'll allow everybody to do that. Perfect. Give it a few more moments. And if you look down as well too, the next question that's on that same poll is which program delivery are you interested in? And we gave you the option of on-campus, blended, which is a combination of online and in-person residencies, which we'll get into more details later in the session, or not sure yet. Great. I'm going to end the poll now and I'm going to launch the results here. Okay, it looks like we have about 50% who want to work in the field of communications, and we also have people who want to influence positive change. Regarding the delivery model, we have 50% interested in on-campus and 50% interested in blended. Okay, wow, so we have people all over the place. Thank you so much for contributing to the poll. We're also going to, today in today's session, go over a brief overview of the Royal Roads University experience, program information, the application process, and as I mentioned, questions throughout, pop them in the chat, and we can also have a question and answer at the end if anything goes unanswered. Moving on, a bit about Victoria, British Columbia. As mentioned, it's sunny outside. It's a beautiful fall day. Here in Victoria, we have a population of, or I should say, Vancouver Island, we have a population of about 750,000 people. And in Greater Victoria, we're kind of like a big town, small city. Like there's a lot happening here. There's a lot of places to go out for food. The weather here is pretty temperate all year round. So you can go for hikes and walks and bike rides. It's only a few hours away if you want to go surfing. And we're also surrounded by ocean. We're on Vancouver Island and it's just a beautiful place to be. The top 3 industries in Victoria: advanced technology, tourism and hospitality, and education. And it's just a wonderful place. Give me a thumbs up actually in the chat if you've been to Victoria, British Columbia before. And give me a party emoji if you haven't, but you can't wait to come visit. Thank you. Awesome. So here's a couple images that just kind of show our space here at Royal Roads University. So the top left is Hatley Castle. You might even recognize Hatley Castle from movies such as Deadpool and X-Men. It's a beautiful castle on our grounds, and it overlooks the Esquimalt Lagoon, which is this beautiful lagoon. You'll see that in the bottom left of the PowerPoint slide there. And it's like a bird sanctuary, and it's a gorgeous place to go for a walk. On the top right, you'll see a picture of a bridge. That is from our gardens. We have a beautiful garden on campus that you can wander around. It includes a Japanese garden, a rose garden, and lots of different species of plants. And then in the bottom right is just an image to show you that we've been here at Royal Roads doing online learning for over 25 years. So we know what we're doing here at Royal Roads, and we're always happy to share that with you. So why explore Royal Roads? That's one of the questions we get a lot. And we're different. We've been built differently here at Royal Roads since day one. And one of the ways we see are built differently is we see life as a qualification. So we'll talk more about this later in the session, but we have standard admission and flexible admission because we understand that everyone here in this room is coming to us from a different career path and a different path in general. So we see your life experience as a qualification. Also, profs who know your name. We get to know you very quickly here at Royal Roads. You're way more than just a student number. You are your first name, and all your profs will know your name very quickly. And it's learning based on life. So there's not that division between the classroom and the work place. It's integrated, it's all together. So it's really that learning, like what you learn in the classroom, you can essentially apply the very next day in your organization. And connections for life. At Royal Roads, we have cohort models. That's how we design our classes. And the people you meet in your cohort, you will maintain those connections for the rest of your life. Both professional and personal connections that you make. So we were built differently here from day one. We're also an Ashoka U change-making campus. And you'll notice that we integrate a lot of that change-making approach to our learning and how we develop our learning and teaching model. And now we're going to go into our program structure. So I'm so pleased to welcome Dr. Wow, sorry, too many words at once. I'm so pleased to welcome Dr. Geo Takach and Dr. Chaseten Remillard to talk more about the program structure of the Bachelor of Professional Communication program. Welcome.
Thanks, Samara. Well, I guess I'll take it off. My name is Dr. Chaseten Remillard. Students at Royal Roads call me Chase, as is the tradition, as was outlined. You get to know your profs pretty closely, and you get to interact with them on a first name basis, which is probably one of the best features for students, I think, in terms of a differentiator between Royal Roads and other more traditional universities. So the program that I'm in charge of, or that I'm the program head for, and program head just basically sort of looks over the academic integrity of the program and helps make sure that the instructors are doing what they need to do, and they understand and kind of have an overview of the academic sort of trajectory of the program. So for our program, the on campus, we do a 12-month degree completion, and in that 12 months, currently we're online. So if you were to join us in the fall here, which you might be able to, because we still are accepting applications for a little bit. You would meet 5 times a day in a synchronous session, and or 5 times a week in a synchronous session for about 90 minutes a day. When we're actually back on campus, which we will be next fall, what we do is we have 1 course per day, and basically that's your routine. So you would have you'd have a class on Monday, a class on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And our courses typically our program typically runs sort of 10-week terms. So you will start later in September, and we finish for the holiday break, in sort of early December, and then pick back up in January for 10 weeks, have a couple weeks off, another 10 weeks, couple weeks off, and then finish the whole program by August 31st, last little bit of August in your at the end of that year. So the program is fast. It's called an accelerated program or an intensive program for a reason, but you will be able to get out into the world in a faster pace than if you were to go again to a more traditional university and try to finish those last 2 years, because we go right through the summer. So I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Geo Takach, who's much more eloquent than I am. and he'll run you through what the blended program looks like. And so, Geo, over to you, my friend.
Thanks, Chase. The jury is still very much out on the point of eloquence, but I'm delighted to join you today. Delighted to follow in the footsteps of the smarter and better looking half of what our one of our former school directors called the BAPC brothers. BAPC is perhaps the ugliest acronym ever created, standing for BA in Professional Communication. But we wear the mantle with the dignity and the pride that it deserves. As Chase mentioned, I am the blended counterpart. And so the difference between the program is substantially the same, but the mode of delivery is different. And the primary reason for that difference is to account for your life circumstances. Typically, I refer to that we both teach in each other's programs as well as in our own and running our own. And what I like to tell students in Chase's program is that the 1 year is the guerrilla program, where people just devote their lives essentially. When it's on campus, they come to Victoria and they stay here, they live here. And everything revolves around the classes. The blended program is still very much a compressed, concentrated program, but it's spread over 2 years rather than one. And the pivotal point for the program is an annual 2-week residency, which or on-campus intensive, where in non-pandemic times, students come to campus and they take a battery of courses, typically 3 or 4, sometimes more at the same time, depending on the program year, and you get to interact with your instructors and your cohort and class. And Royal Roads, one of the pillars on which it's founded, is this notion of learning together, and the fact that people make their learn more, not only from themselves, but with their cohorts. So there's a fixed menu on both sides of the BAPC. You get a fixed menu of courses. You go through the courses with the same group of colleagues, and your cohort may vary in size. A typical cohort in recent years in the blended ranges from about 28 to, we have about 41, 42 this year. It's maybe in the early mid-30s, maybe even higher in a typical year in the OC. Chase will correct me if I'm wrong, OC being on campus. This university, by the way, is lethal when it comes to acronyms. When I arrived, I was so overwhelmed by them that I made a remark to the director at the time, our colleague Jen Molinga, who gave us the brothers handle, and said, you know, you really should have a handbook of acronyms. And she said, we do have one. And she sent it to me. I was flabbergasted. And it's, of course, not nearly complete, as we keep adding new ones. Okay, so Chase mentioned the fact that you will have a relationship with your instructors. We like to think you have one with your program head as well. So if you've got a problem at the program level, you can come and see us on the academic side. We have just an absolute first-rate staff. We have Louise Baxfield, our program coordinator, and she masterminds and is the institutional memory of the program, and masterminds and coordinates the faculty. Jackie Lee is our fabulous program assistant, and she would be your primary point of contact on student issues. Non-academic student issues, although she's certainly her portfolio includes helping on the academic side as well. The difference between the kinds of folks who take our respective programs, I would say, the blended is typically the demographic skews a little bit older. The average age might be just over 30. We'd be talking about early to mid-career professionals who don't have a full year of their life to devote to this because of work, family or other responsibilities. So they take the program over 2 years, but they find, even though it's 2 years rather than 1, they do find their timetables to be very full. I took a blended program earlier in life, and I remember asking myself in the course of it, and maybe the same thing probably would apply in the on-campus program, what am I going to do with all the spare time that I'm spending on my school once I graduate? And that is something that our students tend to also repeat. It is a tradition. So that's a quick look at the different models of delivery of the BA in Professional Communication program. Courses. When we discussed this, I was going to talk a little bit about courses, but I like the sound of Chase's voice more than my own. Chase, if you want to say a few words about it, I will follow you. If you want to just leave it to me, I can do it. It's up to you.
Well, we'll trade it up here, Geo, because you kind of filled in a little bit about the philosophy of the program. I mean, there's a long list, and you can see that it goes over 2 pages here, and I think that it would be a little bit tiresome to go into specific detail about each of these different courses, because all of the information is on the website, and you can take a look at all of the different brief descriptions of what the courses offer. I think the key thing is that recently Geo and I did a total overhaul of this program, and we spent a lot of time thinking about what professional communication means at the sort of threshold of 2020s, and what we kind of came up with a 4-act kind of narrative, or 4-act, being theatrical as we are, we sort of call it a sort of a play, but we weren't allowed to use those terms. But essentially the first act, or the sort of first term, is really about foundations. So people come into the program from all kinds of different places. So you might have a filmmaker, you might have somebody who's worked a long time in communications, but they've never really actually called what they've done communications until at some point they're like, oh, that's what I'm doing. You might have writers, you might have web page designers, you might have people who have come from technical schools, you might have people who come from an interdisciplinary program, or even a communications background. So that first sort of salvo of courses, which are about the first 5 courses that you take, are really about trying to get a common language about what communications is, which is actually harder than it seems. And Geo and I spent way too long of our lives thinking about what communications is. And so it's not as easy to get a definition of communications. But I always say to the students, my hope is at the end of that first term, if you're on campus and you're going back for the holidays, and you're sitting across the table from grandma or grandpa or whatever, and they're like, communications, what's communications? You'll have like a response to them that will satisfy them in some way. You'll say, well, what I'm really studying is this, and how meaning is made and transmitted, and looking at different platforms and so on. So that first term is really about that foundational kind of connection, so that everyone has the same vocabulary. And the second term is really about kind of understanding the different media. How do you then take communications and put it within, present it within spoken word, written, digital, video, right? So the second one is about sort of understanding the mode of communications, and the ways in which the platform changes and inflects meaning, and can be used and modified for organizational purposes. And then after that, in the third term, you start to think about contexts. Where do messages come from within organizations, and where do they land in terms of audiences, right? So you talk about organizational communications, you talk about intercultural communications. You talk about the different types of audiences that you would have, and then the final term is sort of about application and process and execution, and also about trajectory, career trajectory. So it's about practicum, it's about putting things in place, it's about building a portfolio for yourself and really kind of putting a brand to yourself as what you want to create for yourself as a professional communicator leaving the program. Are you that digital marketing expert, or are you more of a public relations person? Where do you find yourself in that terrain? And I can say, like, just some really interesting things that we do in the program is that we always are looking for ways to connect theory and practice. We're always looking to actualize things that are really heady with things that you're going to be able to tangibly, like, see, feel, experience. So, for example, a success story that I like to share is that one of our students took a strategic communications course and created a crisis communications plan. And the prof said, this plan is so good that I think you should actually pitch it to the hypothetical client that you were working on. So it was about a mall and about a crisis communication plan for a mall. So he went to a local mall and he talked to the sort of administrator of the mall, and the administrator's like, I can't believe that we don't have this. And he paid him $1,500 for the communication plan. And that's the sort of thing that we do, is we allow you the ability to actually put into practice these concepts. And that's also where the mix of professionals and academics that we have teaching in the program comes in, because you get folks like myself and Geo who have PhDs in communications, but Geo is like a very accomplished filmmaker. He's also, he writes and directs theater. He does documentary film, and so you get people who are kind of in practice, but they're also in academics. But we also hire people who've had a long career of communications that aren't necessarily in academia. They're out there actually practicing. They're in the wilds, practicing communication, and they come in because they want to mentor people and they want to have that experience, that connection with young people or people who are transitioning from one career to the other. They want to have that space, and so as an institution, we're really focused on instruction and teaching. It's, we do research, but a lot of us even research teaching. So it's a real passion for us at Royal Roads. And I know that Geo will probably add some color to what I've said, and I'm happy that he will, but I know he also will be able to speak to the kinds of different places that people land when they're done the program, in terms of their career choices and pathways. So I'll turn it over to Geo, and then of course we can answer some questions that you might have specifically related to anything that we've said.
Thanks, Chase. Nicely queued up. And as far as adding color goes, I'm going to go with magenta, chartreuse, and puce to start with, as a unholy trinity for you. Just a couple of addenda there. The reason that I am completely jazzed about Royal Roads and that I'm here after a nomadic career teaching at various post-secondary institutions while also doing my communications practice, including the corporate realm, did a lot of that, and the corporate government voluntary sector sort of thing, in addition to the art side, is that this university, as Chase said, really, really values both the theory and the practice. And for me, the central tension in the academy has always been, where is that sweet spot between theory and practice? And in more traditional places, as Chase mentioned, there's very much a bias towards theory. In colleges, and technical schools, it's very much a bias towards practice. Well, people like Chase and I love theory. We both teach theory, the theory course. But how much sweeter is that theory if you can actually use it in your professional practice? And that's a real advantage that our graduates find, is that when they learn the theory, it just opens up new ways for them to think and see problems, and gives them new tools and skills to understand how to address a problem that they might not otherwise have. Because yes, some of it is applied common sense, but a lot of it is just learning to think differently. So I would say the 3 points of the triangle in our BAPC program are, first of all, theory, new ways to think, practice, the idea of actually applying it, and the third point is creativity, how to bring your skill set to problems, to bring your authentic self to a problem, to distinguish yourself in the grand marketplace of ideas and commerce and everything else, and distinguish yourself in that field and make a career for yourself. And that's what these courses are designed to do. Some of them account for all 3 of those points of the triangle. Some of them are more biased towards some than others. Obviously, communication theory is very heavy on the theory side, even though we like to give practical applications of the theory in action. Of course, like strategic internal and external communication would be both. As would, we have a brand new course we've just launched, well, a few actually. Just having a look, crisis communication is again very much a mixed course. The multimedia storytelling also draws on some theory and practice, but it really emphasizes the creativity as well. The capstone and portfolio course is your it's now where it belongs in the program at the very end, and it's your launching station between your learning at, so you're going this way, between your learning at Royal Roads and the next stage of your career. So it's bringing everything together, all your learning into a portfolio and final paper to get you to reflect on what you've learned and how you propose to apply that when you go out into the working world. So again, theory, practice, and creativity, and our goal, as our tagline around here famously says, is to provide you with a life-changing experience. So that's a breakdown on the 4 acts in the program, and the foundations or the pillars upon which the program is structured, and some of the courses, which, as Chase said, you can read all about. So we can move on, Amara, he says artlessly, to our next slide, and just give you a quick glance here at some of the careers. Chase mentioned that people come from all walks and occasionally jogs or bicycles of life into the BAPC program. They may be, you may be interested in one of these fields, you may be engaged in one of these fields, you may be transitioning between these fields, but communication studies famously is a borrowing discipline. It borrows from a lot of ologies, psychology, sociology. It borrows from film studies, it borrows from linguistics, anthropology, there's another one, business, international relations, all these different fields communications draws on. So whatever line of work you want to go into, communication will probably help. I once made an offhanded remark in class that, I don't know if there's any profession that couldn't benefit from the study of communications. Maybe lighthouse keeper, you're by yourself all the time, and somebody, some bright person in the back row pointed out to me that, lighthouse keepers communicate too, and that's the essence of what they do. I thought that was an insightful flash, as it were. So there you have it, a look at some of the careers that require communication. So it's not just the government or the corporate communications shop will benefit, a job in a place like that will benefit from communication studies pretty well across the spectrum. If you're interested in relating to people, persuading people to adopt a particular point of view or a course of action, helping to manage an organization, supporting a volunteer cause. All of these things will be served by the courses in the program that are offered in the BAPC. Chase, anything to add on careers?
I mean, I think you covered careers great, but I would just add that we do also have grads that go on to MAs and PhDs, and that, you know, it's not just about, as much as having a job is great, is that it also opens the door for further study. And, you know, we have had grads go on to become professors and so on. So I think it's also a gateway into another career, which isn't explicitly practical, but which is more academic. And so that also is available to you.
Should add, we've got a couple of master's degrees in our school. One of them being run by Chase, wearing one of his many hats, our Master of Arts in Professional Communication program. We also have a Master of Arts blended and on campus in international and intercultural communication, and maybe that'll come up on a subsequent slide, and we're getting ahead of ourselves, so maybe it's time to go back to Amara right now.
Thank you so much, Geo and Chase. I always learn a lot from these sessions, and thank you for sharing insight into the program. And I will share out links for webinars that we have that we're hosting on those other programs if you are interested in learning more about kind of where you can go with like a master's of intercultural and international communication, or a master's in professional communication. So we have a few webinars this month, actually. And so now you're all probably wanting to know, how do you apply? So we're going to jump into that and dive into how to apply. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions about anything that Chase or Geo said or mentioned, or you want to kind of learn more about it, pop into the chat and we will address those questions. So as I mentioned earlier, we have both a standard admission and a flexible admission. So for standard admission, it's a completion of a diploma or 60 credits in communication, journalism, business administration, or general arts, including a minimum of 24 second-year credits with a minimum GPA of a B from a recognized post-secondary institution. So this is for our standard admission. With our flexible admission, it's normally a minimum of 5 years of relevant work experience in the areas of communication, public relations, journalism, or other related fields, as well as evidence of having sufficient knowledge, skills, and ability to complete a demanding academic course of study. And I really want to emphasize the assessed by case, on a case-by-case basis. So if you're not sure if you have the right experience or have enough experience, please connect with us, please talk to us, reach out to our enrollment team. I know they've mentioned their contact information in the chat, because we're here to help you determine if this program is a right fit. So don't not connect to us. Make sure you reach out and we can help you with that. So there's also a language requirement for our program. So English is the primary language of instruction and communication at Royal Roads. So if your primary language isn't English, you need to meet our English requirements through one of the 3 ways that we have listed here. So it's either holding a recognized credential from an English-speaking country, submitting an official English language proficiency test score, or completing one of our Global Learning and Language Center programs. I included a link at the bottom of the slide there. There's more information that goes into detail if this is relevant to you. And we also have a lot of transfer agreements with local and global institutions. So as this is a career, a degree completion program, you can transfer in from all of these established post-secondaries and colleges. So if you don't see your college or university on the list there, I highly recommend going to our webpage that's listed at the bottom. And I'm sure somebody can pop that in the chat as well for you. And you can look up your school and see if there's a transfer agreement. So I highly recommend doing that. Awesome. Thank you for popping that in the chat there. I see it just came up. So key dates to jot down, and we always make sure that our website is fully up to date with application and start date information. So these are just the ones for the 2022 spring blended intake and on-campus intake. So these key dates, the start date of the program is March 28th, 2022, and the application deadline is December 28th, 2021. So it's coming up soon, but you still have a few months. And then we also have, for the on-campus intake, we have the start date of September 12th, 2022, and the application deadline for this is June 12th. So continuing on the how to apply. So now you know about our standard and flexible admission, you know about the start dates. Now we're going to jump into kind of some supporting documents that you need to include with your application. So to start the application process, it's an online process. You go onto our website, you create an account, and you pay a fee of $128.81. I know, a very specific number. And once you've started this online application, you need to submit supporting documents, including an official transcript. So what we mean by an official transcript is a transcript from all post-secondary institutions that are previously or currently attended. And it's considered official if it's delivered to us in the mail in a sealed envelope, or with COVID, we are also accepting transcripts by email by a recognized institution. And we also require a detailed resume. So this is a resume that's beyond like the resume that you would use to potentially apply for a position or a job. It's a detailed resume. We really want to get to know you. So it can be more than 2 pages. It's in a lot of detail, and you'll be kind of listing information like your education, your professional experience, any voluntary and unpaid work, professional memberships and affiliation, your experience with technology, and any other relevant information. And the way I recommend that you complete these supporting documents is you go to our website. We actually have a webpage just dedicated to applying to the Bachelor of Professional Communication program. So I highly recommend you just go to that webpage and you just follow it step by step of the things that you need to submit. And there's a lot of detail on that web page about the detailed resume. So go there and just check it off as you complete it. We also ask that you submit a personal statement of intent. And what this is really your why. What is your why, your reasons, your goals for applying for this program? What do you want to get out of this program? What do you bring to this program? And we have more details as well on our webpage. And I see you unmuted your camera there, Geo. Did you want to add anything about the personal statement or the why?
Yes, I did, Amara. Thank you. And no, I muted myself as a webinar beautification initiative. I muted my camera. But I just wanted to make a statement about the all of these things are important. But what I look at in particular when I review these files is that personal statement. It does not have to be written to the standard of a professional communicator, but it does need to give a sense of your authentic self and share an affinity and dare I even suggest a passion for the study of communication. It's your chance to really shine and just be yourself, rather than, it's better to be a first-rate version of yourself and let yourself shine through the letter than a second or third-rate version of something generic and official and that you think is businesslike and more impressive. Be as professional as you can in your approach, but mostly be yourself. Thanks.
Thank you for adding that. And that just kind of really emphasizes how we do look at everybody's application case by case. And we want to know who you are and where you're coming from and your experience and that authenticity and that genuineness coming through. So pro tip, I recently applied for a program actually within the School of Communication as well. And a pro tip is to write your why, your personal statement, and then share it with the people that you are having writing your reference letters, because you are required 2 letters of reference. But sharing that document with the people writing the letter can really help them understand your why and what you're trying to showcase in your application package. So create your personal statement first, share it with the people who are writing your reference letter, and that will really help them write that letter for you. And we do require 2 letters of reference. So these can be kind of professional letters or academic letters. And there's also a requirement occasionally for a portfolio upon request, and we have more details on that on the website. So I won't jump into that. And we also understand that it is an investment going back to school. So we do have financial aid resources available here. So while you're determining whether the program's the right fit and you're beginning the application process, connect with financial aid and see if they can support you with things like loans and awards, research scholarships, and other funding. And they're very, very helpful. So check out their website. You can always set up an appointment as well. And application support. So you're not going through this alone. We're here to help you. And our enrollment advisors are so knowledgeable when it comes to information around the programs, like going through the application process, what your qualifications if you go through standard or flexible admission, transfer agreements, all of those things. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask those questions. So this is their contact information here. I know that they have also popped it into the chat, so you can you're welcome to reach out directly, but you can contact, if you're a domestic student, you can contact Enrollment Advisors, learn.more@royalroads.ca, and if you're coming internationally, learn.more.international@royalroads.ca, and they can support you. And now we're jumping into the questions. So I've seen some questions popping up in the chat, but I haven't had a chance to look at them. So I'm going to welcome Geo and Chase back up, and we can go through the questions together. It is a bit of a smaller group, so if you wanted to verbally ask your question, you can always use the raise hand function, and I can unmute your mic for you, and you can ask it verbally. Well, I'm going to start with a question that somebody sent me earlier. Let me see what it says. I'd like to hear more about what the cohort is like. I'd like to hear more about what a day-to-day in the cohort. So if you can jump into kind of what the cohort is like and like what you do in a day or a week or a month.
So for the cohort that would be on campus, it depends on the class, but you know, there are classes that are more team-based learning than others. So for example, in a theory class, you may have a team assignment where you do a presentation on a theory or something like that, but it would be sort of a siloed assignment, and you would come together as a group, and it would be your classic sort of peer-to-peer kind of learning environment. But in another course like media, a multimodal storytelling, where you're asked to produce like a fairly large media project, then you would assemble a team, you know, or a team would be assembled for you that would have various sort of different strengths, hopefully, and then you would work kind of like as a team on creating that project. So the cohort is there for teamwork, but the cohort is also there for, you know, it's there to help you through. Like, it's also about support, because both programs are in different ways fairly intense, and to have a cohort where everyone is kind of going through the same thing together helps able you to, you know, lean on each other and kind of learn from each other. So the cohort is there in terms of support, and I think the cohort is also there in terms of creating that community after you graduate, so that you have people who are doing the things that you would like to do across Canada or around the world even, and there are resources for you. You might, hey, I got a contract to revise this website and I need a couple of creatives to help me do that. I know exactly who could do that work for me, and you can kind of shoulder tap those people. And that kind of like professional relationship is really useful to have, and is definitely a byproduct of the cohort. So it's sort of like a family, you know. It has its social dynamics to it. It's got an academic purpose to it, and it also has sort of a career benefit.
I'm going to piggyback onto that by mentioning that we do two kinds of learning. Royal Roads is actually into its 26th year of the online learning enterprise and was a pioneer in that space. So we have basically the old style synchronous learning where you all learn at the same space and time. That typically takes place in a classroom. It certainly takes place in the blended program, in the residency. That's where the blended comes from. It's mixed of in-person and online. Synchronous means you're doing it at the same time. So even in a virtual environment, I'm teaching a class right now where Tuesday and Thursday nights, people show up across Canada at the same time. So we tend to go easy on the folks in the Eastern time zone in particular, in terms of how late we go. But you're learning at the same time, and you're having live conversations, live breakout groups, and this sort of thing. So you can learn in that way. And typically there, what happens is the prof doesn't, or I certainly don't lecture. We look at the readings in advance, and then we just discuss them. So these unfold more informally as conversations. And Royal Roads has every platform imaginable, so you can choose the one with the best tools, whether it's a whiteboard or breakout room, or you're bringing in a Padlet. Whatever technology meets the learning objectives and the interests and the needs of the class. The other, and this is in more of the blended feature of the blended program, is asynchronous learning. That's the word synchronous with the letter A in front of it to move it up earlier in the alphabet, I suppose. And that unfolds by way of discussion threads. So we have a platform called Moodle, which is the successor to an earlier platform called Blackboard. And we have these course shells. Every Royal Roads has a course shell that contains all the important documents of the course. And Chase and I were huge proponents of trying to simplify Moodle. And actually we worked with our ed tech designers to simplify, to come up with a template for all of our BAPC courses. So the interface that you encounter when you look at the course shell, your introduction to the course for the first time, is consistent across our BAPC courses, subject of course to editorial modification by your individual instructor, but you'll at least know where to look for what in Moodle, because it used to have a lot more nooks and crannies than it does now. And the discussion forum, the way that takes place is typically for a week. There will be discussion questions posted, and then you, in your own good time in an online course, will type in a response to it based on your readings and the discussions we've had in the class, and then somebody will reply to you, and somebody will then reply to them, and then the cohort builds this conversation, not in real time, but on the discussion board. So you post when you're good and ready to post, and typically every week we turn over the questions. So on a Sunday night at the end of the Royal Roads work week, is Sunday night. Typically there's a flurry of people who have not had the opportunity to post. That you might see a lot of postings on Sunday night before the midnight deadline, but we have some really, really good conversations taking place online where you can actually read a thread and think about it and deliberate, and then post when you're good and ready. So we have synchronous and asynchronous learning that are part of Royal Road students' everyday experience. Amara, back to you.
Thank you, Chase, and thank you, Geo. And I just want to read a comment in the chat from Christine, who is one of our enrollment advisors. She's actually an RU BAPC alum, and she just mentioned in the chat that when I'll just read it as she typed it. She said, I am an RU BAPC alumni, and when I attended BAPC many years ago, I found the cohort model and working in teams really motivated me to keep on track, meet deadlines, and enrich my course discussions and learning experience. Thank you, Christine, for sharing that. And if anybody does have questions about the BAPC experience, you can reach out directly to Christine as well. And I just wanted to ask you, Geo and Chase, we're kind of coming up to the end of the session, but do you have anything that you could share with people in the room or people watching this recording later regarding if they're considering taking this program? Do you have any final words that you want to share for people that are considering taking the BAPC program?
Geo, you get to go first this time.
Okay. Our goal is to provide you with a life-changing experience. Communication is a central part of the human enterprise, and we do our level best here to bring a personal touch to that with a view to helping you continue to build your best and most authentic professional self in this field. The relationship between communication and culture and media, the relationships among those 3 points are things that we explore in depth. We love it, and we hope you love it too if you take that step.
And I think if Geo covered the sort of heart and soul of the program, I'll cover the boots in the street kind of pitch, which would be, you're going to get a job. I mean, if there's anything that the previous presidential use of Twitter taught us, and the pandemic has taught us, is that communications is critical to organizations, and that communication professionals are needed and in high demand. And it's in every sector. It's in every organization. It's from volunteer and nonprofit to governments, and and anything and everything between. So if you're an entrepreneur, or if you want something stable, communications is definitely a career path that has that mix. It's that really nice mix between the creative and the practical, and it allows you to do things that are going to be interesting and maintain your interest in working on diverse projects throughout your career.
Thank you both so much. Thank you, Geo. Thank you, Chase. A big round of applause, or a Zoom round of applause. Really appreciate you taking the time today to explore the program. And thank you to everyone who attended today's session. If you have any questions, we are here to support, as well as thank you to the support team behind the scenes supporting this webinar. It really takes a village to put on one of these events.